Welcome to another World History 2 topic walkthrough, brought to you by Mr. Michael, Social Studies teacher. This video is here to help you fill out your lecture notes, understand the big ideas, and maybe even laugh once or twice. So grab your notes and let's get started.
In our last episode, the Enlightenment was all power to the people, reason, rights. And now, the people of France took that very literally. Welcome to the French Revolution, where bread prices skyrocket, the royal fam gets cancelled, and political chaos becomes the national vibe. We're diving into topic 2.3, revolutions, seeing how Enlightenment ideas lit the match, and France absolutely exploded. Let's see what happens when an entire nation decides they're done with kings, taxes, and business as usual. Okay, here's the game plan. The French Revolution flipped France upside down. And it wasn't just about angry peasants and fancy wigs, it was about people rising up against injustice, weak leadership, and an outdated system that seriously needed a reboot. In this lesson, we're breaking down the causes, events, and big ideas that powered the revolution, and how its impact didn't stop at France's borders. We're talking long-term effects, ripple effects, and maybe a few heads rolling along the way. Next up, let's zoom out and look at Europe before the chaos, the map, the monarchies, and the system people were so ready to tear down. Let's take a look at this map. Europe in the mid-1700s, just vibing before the French Revolution flips everything. This was a time when monarchies ran the show. Most people were stuck in strict social classes, and the Enlightenment was just starting to stir the pot. You can see France right in the center, and spoiler alert, that's where things are about to get spicy. All those places marked with little bursts. Those are centers of enlightenment, cities where thinkers were dropping hot takes about freedom, reason, and natural rights. Paris, London, Berlin, basically the group chat for revolutionary ideas. But while philosophers were writing essays, most European countries still ran on absolute monarchy and feudal vibes. That tension between old-school power and new-school ideas is exactly what's about to explode in France. Before the revolution came knocking, France and all of Europe was running on feudal mode, aka a social system that was seriously stuck in the Middle Ages. Power and privilege were locked up tight at the top, while most people were grinding at the bottom with zero say in how things ran. It wasn't just unfair, it was the perfect recipe for rebellion. Let's check out how this feudal system worked in France and why it left the majority of people ready to flip the whole thing upside down. Here it is, the feudal pyramid, aka the official who gets what chart of pre-revolutionary Europe. At the very top, the king, chilling with full control, luxury, and zero clue how the rest of the country's doing. Right below him are the nobles and church officials, who owned land, collected taxes, and basically lived their best lives. The knights came next, protecting the realm while looking cool in armor. And at the very bottom, the peasants, doing all the work, paying all the taxes, and getting none of the power. Classic. This whole system kept the rich richer and the poor permanently stuck. And surprise, people at the bottom weren't exactly loving it. Next slide, let's meet the three estates, France's version of this social structure, and find out which group finally said, yeah, we're done here. All right, let's talk about the recipe for revolution. And it starts with the old regime and its super unfair social structure. France was divided into three estates. First up, the clergy, or the First Estate. Less than 1% of the population, but they owned a ton of land and barely paid taxes. Oh, and they weren't exactly fans of Enlightenment ideas since equality doesn't sound great when you're living tax-free. Next, the nobles, or the second estate. About 2% of the population, with around 30% of the land, and yep, still not paying taxes. Some nobles toyed with Enlightenment thinking, but let's be real, they weren't trying to give up their cushy lifestyles. Then comes the third estate, a whopping 98% of the population. This group included the bourgeoisie, or educated middle class, who were all about Enlightenment ideas. Then you had urban workers and peasants, most of whom couldn't read or write, but still felt inspired by the vibe of those ideas: fairness, justice, and a better life. They were working the hardest, taxed the heaviest, and had zero political power. And yeah, resentment was building fast. Let's see what finally pushed them over the edge, because the French Revolution is about to erupt. Things didn't just randomly explode in France. This revolution had receipts. First, there was the old order. The Third Estate had to deal with high taxes and zero political voice, while the First and Second Estates just chilled. That resentment? Totally justified. Then came the Enlightenment, and suddenly people were questioning everything: kings, tradition, power. Ideas from thinkers like Rousseau and Locke, plus the American Revolution, gave folks a new way to imagine society. The bourgeoisie understood the philosophy, and even the peasants picked up on the promise of change. Economically, France was a mess. Businesses were crushed by taxes, bad harvests made bread crazy expensive, and war debt drained the country. Oh, and the royal fam? Spending like they had unlimited credit. Which brings us to weak leadership. King Louis XVI avoided problems like a student avoiding group work. He ignored his advisors, delayed decisions, and when he finally acted, it just made things worse. His wife, Marie Antoinette, wasn't helping, with bad advice, big spending, and a major image problem with the people. Add it all up, you've got a country ready to boil over. Let's see how the king's attempt to fix things backfires hard and sparks the start of the revolution. No taxes, no voice, no chill. After everything started falling apart, the economy, the leadership, the public's trust, the Second Estate panicked and forced Louis XVI to call the Estates General, a meeting of representatives from all three social classes. Oh, and fun fact, this hadn't happened in 175 years, so you know things were real bad. But the way, how was it set up? Totally rigged. Each estate got one vote, even though the Third Estate made up nearly the whole population. So guess what? The First and Second Estates always teamed up and outvoted the Third. The Third Estate wasn't having it. They demanded that every representative get a vote, which would give them the majority. But King Louis and the elite said, LOL, nope. That power move, or power block, was the final push. You can feel the pressure building. Next up, the Third Estate takes matters into their own hands, and this revolution officially hits the launch button. This is the moment the revolution officially enters main character mode. After being ignored and outvoted, the Third Estate was like, cool, we'll make our own government. They broke away and formed the National Assembly, ready to write a constitution and actually represent the people. But when they showed up to meet, they were locked out, literally. So they marched over to a nearby tennis court and made a vow to stick together until a new government was in place. That's the tennis court oath. And yes, it was way more powerful than it sounds. King Louis gave in to their demands briefly. Then he sent troops to surround Versailles, and suddenly the rumor mill went wild. People thought the king was planning to shut it all down. That fear lit the match. On July 14th, a mob stormed the Bastille, a political prison that had come to symbolize everything people hated about royal power. Ironically, there were only a few prisoners inside, just 7, but that didn't matter. It wasn't about who was in it. It was about what it represented. And tearing it down was a full-on statement. The revolution had arrived. The chaos spread fast. Peasants across France began attacking nobles. Women in the cities rioted over the skyrocketing price of bread. And the royal family, dragged from their palace at Versailles and forced back into Paris. The people were done waiting, and they were taking power into their own hands. Let's see what changes the revolution actually delivered and what dark turns came with them. The revolution didn't waste any time. Once the people took control, change came fast, and not everyone was ready for it. One of the first big moves was the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Inspired by the US Declaration of Independence, this document laid out bold new ideas like freedom of speech, equal rights, and the power of the people over the monarchy. The slogan, "Liberty, Equality, Fraternity," sounds great unless you were a woman, since the rights in this declaration didn't include them. Then the National Assembly decided to go even further by taking over the Catholic Church. They sold off church land to pay off national debt, which might have helped the economy, but it totally backfired, with millions of Catholic peasants. To them, messing with the church meant crossing a line, and support for the revolution started to get shaky. So while reforms were happening fast, not all of them were winning hearts. The revolution promised change, but it also created tension. And that tension, it's about to explode into something way more intense. Up next, let's break down how the revolutionary government tried to manage all these new opinions and how it led to major political drama. All right, imagine the French government trying to run a group project where no one agrees on anything. Yeah, that's basically the Legislative Assembly. After the early reforms, France set up this new body to create laws and run the country. But inside the assembly, things got real political, real fast. You had the radicals on the left. No monarchy, major government changes, full chaos energy. Then the moderates sat in the center. They wanted a constitutional monarchy and a few controlled changes. Finally, the conservatives held down the right side. They were cool with keeping a limited monarchy and didn't want much to change at all. But politics weren't the only drama. Émigrés, nobles who had fled France, were out here trying to shut the revolution down from the outside and bring back the old regime. On the flip side, you had the sans-culottes, radical urban workers who wanted more change faster and weren't afraid to get loud about it. And just to make things even spicier, other European countries were watching this revolution unfold like, are we next? Some of them got so nervous they actually declared war on France to stop the chaos from spreading. So yeah, pressure was coming from inside the house and from the neighbors. Next, things get even more extreme. Let's see what happens when fear takes over and the revolution turns on its own. Here it is, the part of the French Revolution where things go from "let's change society" to "off with their heads." Welcome to the Reign of Terror. This era was driven by the Jacobins, a radical political group that believed the revolution wasn't safe unless every single threat was eliminated. And they meant it. Anyone who opposed the revolution, even slightly, was labeled an enemy of the state. That included former allies, moderates, and sometimes just people with the wrong opinion. The weapon of choice? The guillotine, a machine designed to make executions quick, efficient, and terrifyingly common. nobody was off limits. By the end of the Reign of Terror, around 40,000 people had been executed. And here's the dark twist. 85% of them were from the Third Estate, the same group the revolution was supposed to protect. Peasants, urban workers, and the middle class were the ones filling the execution lists. The revolution, launched in the name of liberty and equality, had become something else entirely, fueled by fear, controlled by violence, and leaving the people who started it wondering what went wrong. Next up, let's pull back and reflect. Did the French Revolution actually achieve its original goals, or did it just swap one form of oppression for another? All right, let's hit rewind and break down the wild roller coaster that was the French Revolution. It started with major tension. The Third Estate getting taxed into oblivion while the rich stayed cozy, adding Enlightenment ideas, a bankrupt government, and royals with zero chill, and boom, France was ready to erupt. The people rose up, formed the National Assembly, and stormed the Bastille. Reforms followed, like the Declaration of the Rights of Man and seizing church land, but not everyone was on board, especially Catholic peasants. Inside the government, the Legislative Assembly couldn't agree on anything. Outside, radicals like the Jacobins took over and launched the Reign of Terror, where even the revolution's biggest supporters were losing their heads, literally. So yeah, liberty, equality, fraternity kind of got lost in translation. Let's see if you can untangle this mess with a final challenge. Ready for the bonus question? Let's go. All right, critical thinking caps on. It's bonus question time. Did the French Revolution actually achieve its original goals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, or did it just replace one form of oppression with another? We've seen the promises, the reforms, and the radical turn. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Use examples from the revolution, like the Declaration of the Rights of Man, the Reign of Terror, or who actually benefited from the changes, to defend your answer. Drop your response in the comments and make it solid. We're looking for evidence, not just opinions. And don't forget to add your name for that well-earned bonus point. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and don't lose your head over history.